Hey friends, welcome back to a new Python Data Science with Pandas tutorial. And today I'd like to show you a few tricks you can use when you work with Pandas data frames. Now here I already imported Pandas as PD. Let me make it a little bit bigger. And this is just an abbreviation, but you can name whatever you like. And then we read the data frame. In this case, it's my insurance.csv file. And then in order to plot it, we can simply type df.head in Jupyter Notebook, two parentheses here, and if we execute it, we get the data frame. And we can see it got numerical columns as well as string columns or text columns, right? Now, one tip I can give you is when you want to specify how many rows you want to display, simply type in the number here. For instance, if I say 10, then I would see the first 10 entries, right? So you can specify it here. The default, if you leave it blank, it's simply 5. So from 0 to 4. As you can see here. Next, let's say you would like to have your data frame, but you like to shift actually the data frame in a way that it starts with the last column, and the last row and up to the first row. So basically reverse the data frame. So to do this, you can simply call df.log and then you simply type in 2 double points and then -1. And if you execute this, now you see that the last entry, which is 1337 in this case, is here now the first entry, and the first entry here, 0, is the last entry, right? So this is simply a reverse of the data frame considering the rows of the data frame. And if you want to reset the index, also simply type in .reset, reset index, and then in place. Or actually, we don't need to spell it here. We can do it directly like that. And then we have it like this, right? So it starts here with this one. You can simply call drop equals true if you want. So drop equals to true. Then you don't specify or save the index here. So if you can execute this, then you see that the index column is gone, the original index column. But resetting the index would allow you simply to at first reverse the order of the rows. So from the last to the first, and then you simply re-index the whole data frame. What if you like to do actually reversing, but of the columns? So you want to have the charges column as the first column and the age column as the last column. What to do then? Well, it's kind of similar to what we've done here. It would simply be df.log, and this time you type in a double point and then a comma, and then for the columns you use 2 double points and then -1. And if you execute this, you should see that now the charges, which was the last column, is now the first column, and the age, which in this case here was the first column in the original data frame, or actually this was the original data frame, is now the last column here. So this would allow you to simply swap around the order of the columns. The last trick here I'd like to share with you is how to rename the column headers, because there are 2 options in Pandas data frames. The one is to call df.columns. The other one would be to call rename. So as an example, if you say df.columns is equal to, this allows you to specify a list. So this means if we have, in this case, 7, so 2, 6, 4, 6, 7 columns, we need to give it a list with 7 entries. So for instance, I could say the columns is, and then a list, it's A, B, C, of course don't forget the comma, then D, E, and let's say F here, right? So these are 6, and of course I need a 7 one, G, like that, okay? You can do this, and if we do it, and now call df again, so df.head, now we'd see that the columns have been renamed, right, to these columns here. So if we do it with renaming the columns like df.columns, what is required is that you rename all of them. So that means even if you want to keep, for instance, only one of the names, you need to specify this. Like for instance, A, and then I want to keep the region, then I would say, instead of B, I would type in simply region again. So I would actually rename it with the same name. But this is required if you use columns, because this is referring to all the columns in the data frame, so you need to refer to all of them. And if you have 7 columns, like we have here, then you need to give it 7 values in here. So let me go back up here and let me just execute this one more time. So we get our original data frame back. So if I go in here and call df.head, then we get our original columns back. And the other option, if you only want to select or change specific entries here, you could do it via the rename command. So df.rename, and then here you need to insert a dictionary. And the dictionary simply maps specific column names to the value, the new column name you want to give it. For instance, I could say I would like to have the sex column, and instead of using sex, I simply want to use gender. So now I replace the name sex with gender, and one thing I need to do here is I need to specify the axis. So I need to say axis equal to 1 to make sure that actually the column headers are considered and not the rows, so not the index. So if we do this and execute this, now you see we got age, gender, and so on. So now sex is mapped to gender. And if you want to have this in place, simply also use comma and then in place is equal to true if you want to apply it to original data frame. And that's it actually for this tips and tricks here. So this is of course reading the data frame, you already know this, but if you want to simply change the order of the rows, you can do it like this. Or if you want to swap around the columns, you can do it like this. Or finally, if you want to rename the data frame, you have two options. Either you call df.columns directly, but then you need to rename all of them. Or you want to be specific for columns, then you can call .rename and map specific columns to new names, but make sure that you specify the axis. Okay? And that's it for this tips and tricks with Pandas. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.